Okay, now the content is going to be tailored according to your profile, right? So let's talk about one particular profile here. So let's focus on a candidate who is a recent graduate, okay? But their graduation is in a different field altogether. Like this particular person has graduated from the field of commerce. BCom is something that this person has done, or Bachelor's of Accounting and Finance. BAF is something that this person has done their graduation. Okay, now when this person is going to craft their resume, and now they have switched to a technical profile, let's say they have taken up the course of full stack development, that is the course or the domain that this particular person is interested in and want to progress in their career. Okay. So when this candidate is making their resume, is this wise for this person to mention their education in the first section of their resume itself? Answer in the chat whether it's yes or no. Is it wise for this person to mention education firstly and foremost? Okay, Mamta is saying no. Pooja is also saying no. Okay. Yes, others also pitch in. Yes or no? What do you feel? Okay. All right. So majority of you or many of you are saying that no, it's not wise, right? So what I would rather do is I will try to, okay, not necessary. We should list our skills first. All right. Leave the candidate with questions at the first instance itself. All right. Latest education degree alone we can mention with full name. Okay. Yes. So what you're going to do in this particular case is you are going to mention the relevant things first. So whenever you're going to craft your resume, just give me a moment. So whenever you're going to craft your resume, ensure that you are creating your resume in such a way that you're crafting it according to the relevance of the right. So for the recruiter currently, since your education is in a non-IT field, that is not something that is relevant to this person. To this person, your skill sets, your projects, your certifications is something that is going to be relevant, right? So here you need not showcase it in the first part itself. So what you're going to do instead is you are going to showcase your skills first, a career objective, a skills section, right? A project section, followed by maybe your education, and then followed by certifications, so on and so forth, awards and achievements, etc., etc. So this is what the crafting or the format of your resume is going to look like. All right. So this is something that all of you should keep in mind. Now, if I talk about another person's profile, which is a candidate who has graduated in a technical background itself, right? So they have done Bachelor's of Technology in Computer Science, BTech in CS. Okay. So in that case, and is a recent graduate as well, doesn't have any experience. So here it makes sense for this person to mention their education first and foremost, followed by skills, because this person's education is something that is in the domain that they want to pursue their career itself in, right? So this is the kind of thing that you should be following when you're going to craft your resume. Okay. So always keep this in mind. Don't follow a structure that because my friend is following the structure, I will also copy paste the same thing. No. Whenever you're crafting your resume, always a logic should be applied as to why am I adding this here? Why am I adding my technical skills first, followed by my projects and then education, or so on and so forth, right? Now, again, like I mentioned earlier as well, if you have experience which is in a non-IT profile, right? It doesn't make sense for me to add my work experience in the first section itself, right? So I would rather mention skills, then projects, followed by work experience, followed by education, so on and so forth. So this is the kind of format that I should be using. Again, a person who has technical experience, right? So here, what should I be doing? I will mention my experience first, followed by skills, followed by projects, so on and so forth. Okay, so this kind of formatting you all should be taking care of when you're going to apply or create your resumes. Okay, all right. So any doubts you have in the resume content? You can give a thumbs up if we can move on to the next slide. Okay, great.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, yes, Avinash. Go ahead.
Ma'am, I am sorry, I worked in HDFC Bank for 2 years.
Okay.
So in my resume, should I show it like work experience of 2 years, or should I show fresher?
Okay, so what was your designation, Avinash? What was the profile that you were working in HDFC?
I was a CRE, Customer Representative Executive.
Okay, all right. Again, like what is your year of graduation here, Avinash?
2021, ma'am.
2021. And which profile? Which course have you taken?
BSc IT, ma'am.
BSc IT, right? Okay. So here
Yes.
you will be asked questions because you're coming from a technical background itself, right? You have completed your BSc in IT, information technology, and then you switch to a customer representative kind of a role, and now you're switching back into the field of IT, right? This is the profile that you have currently, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So here, Avinash, it's up to you whether you need to add it in your resume or not. Okay. So my suggestion, personal suggestion would be not to add it in your resume. Okay. Because since you have your education itself in a different field altogether, okay, or in a technical field altogether, and then you switched your field into a different career path. Okay. So don't mention your experience here. Okay. If the recruiter is going to ask this to you during the interview, so you have completed your graduation in the year of 2021, right? So after that, what is the why is there a gap in your career, etc., etc.? You can mention that during the interview that this is a profile that you were in. Because why I'm focusing on the interview is because during the interview you have the upper hand here, right? You are sitting in face to face with the recruiter. You can convince the recruiter that XYZ, due to XYZ reasons, you were working in this particular organization, XYZ designation, and now you realize that you wanted to pursue your career further in the field of technology itself, so you realize to switch, okay, or leave the organization altogether. Okay, here you can also focus on the course that you have taken up here. So you took up a certification program or a course altogether to upskill the skills that were required for this role. Okay, so yeah, आप answer कर सकते हो during the interview, but when you're adding it in your resume, don't mention it, or if you're mentioning it just in one line like I said earlier, that is something that you can do. But my personal
Okay,
suggestion would
ma'am.
be not to mention it.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Hi,
All
ma'am.
right. So now let's take a look at building an ATS compatible resume. Okay, I think someone else had also unmuted.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, go
Yeah,
ahead. Go ahead, Ravindra.
yes. Similar to Avinash, I also worked for 4 years, and
Okay.
after that, I have a career gap, so I joined for FSD. So,
FSG.
yes. So, should I mention that career gap and the previous work experience as well?
So what is the duration of this career gap? Experience is for 4 years. What is the duration of your career gap?
Near about 2.5 years now.
2.5 years. Okay. And what is the profile, educational background that you're coming from?
Yeah, I completed my computer engineering degree in 2017.
Okay. And what designation you were working in, Ravindra?
I was working as a senior associate and then worked as an administrator, but it was a support role.
And support roles. Okay. So here, Ravindra, since you have a 4 year, career, 4 year you have spent, and then you have 2+ years of gap as well. Here, do mention the experience of yours, because otherwise it's going to be a huge gap, right? Your profile might get rejected because of the gap that you have in your career. Unless it's a reasonable kind of a gap, then it's going to be considered. Here, there can be unnecessary rejection because of the career gap that you have, right? Because you got done with your graduation in the year of 2017, and it's 2024 currently, right?
Yes.
So yes, do add it again. Like I said, the same thing applicable for you as well, just in because it's not a purely technical role that you have undertaken. Okay, so don't mention it in detail. 1 or 2 lines would be more than enough. Your duration, specify the duration and the designation, and that is how you're going to take it forward.
Okay, sure. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Now coming to building an ATS compatible resume. So earlier we had discussed something called as ATS, right? Applicant tracking system. Okay. So when you are building a resume these days, especially like I said, you also need to ensure that your resume is something that is compatible with ATS systems. Okay. So there are certain things that you should be taking care of to ensure that your resume is compatible. Okay. So first and foremost is using an ATS compatible template. Okay, now you might have this question, what is an ATS compatible template? Okay, so to simply put this, don't use the templates that are available on Canva. Okay, why I'm focusing on this, or any templates that are available on the internet wherein you have this one-page resume wherein there is a bifurcation, there's a division in between. Okay, there's a pink colored or a different colored side on the left hand side, there's a photograph section that is mandatorily there, right? And there's another section that you can add in the right hand side, right? Which is something that you all might have used at one point or the other in your in a career. Okay, so such kind of templates are generally not ATS compatible. Why so? Because ATS systems, now you don't know which company is using which ATS system, right? So there are certain ATS systems which are highly advanced, no matter what kind of format you upload your resume in, or no matter how your resume looks, it will be able to scan through each and every sections of your resume that is going to be there. There can be another ATS systems which is just at the basic level, and it won't be able to read through or scan through content if it's not mentioned in a proper manner. Okay, or the template that you have used, even though content aapne properly used kiya, the content that you have used is proper, but the template that you used was incorrect or it not ATS compatible, due to which the system rejected your resume. Okay, it could not, or it was not able to read the content of your resume, due to which it found it unreadable and rejected it in the first place. Okay, so this is the first and foremost thing why students' resumes get rejected, especially when they apply on using online systems or online portals. Okay, so what you're going to do here is you're going to use an ATS compatible template. What this template looks like is the old school template, right? The professional way of writing a resume, which is a simple section. All the content is mentioned in a parallel manner, okay, parallel to each other. And there's no divisions or bifurcations or anything of that sort. That is not going to be there in this resume. Again, if you're getting confused, there is an image of this particular resume that I'm going to showcase, which will make you understand it further. Okay, so that is the kind of template that all of you should be utilizing when you're going to craft your resume. All right. Then next is label the sections correctly. When I talk about the labeling the sections correctly, here we are going to focus on the sections that you provide, right? So career objective should be labeled correctly. Work experience should be labeled correctly, right? Work experience should be written properly. EXP, no short forms or abbreviations need be used. So you need to label it correctly, okay? Experience section, education section, skills section, project section, right? Name it in a proper manner, okay? What I did, this is not a correct way of labeling it, okay? Next is avoid tables, charts, images, etc. That should be avoided, okay? Table, making use of tables or charts, diagrams or images for that matter, avoid that. Then use compatible fonts or sizes, okay? So why we are discussing about this is there are certain fonts that you use which is not negligible or which is not readable by ATS systems or these softwares for that matter. Okay, so use the general fonts that are easily readable like Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman, right? ED Caramon. Such kind of fonts should be utilized, which is not fancy or something that is readable across. Okay, so that is something that you should be taking care of. Next is size. Okay, so the size that you're or the font size that you're going to use throughout the resume should also be uniform, right? It should not be that one section is you have used 12, in another section you have used 14, in different section you have used 13, 16, so on and so forth, right? So font size should be uniform throughout. We are not talking about your name here. Like I discussed earlier, name should be in a slightly bigger font than the rest of the body. Okay. Next is enrich your resume with profile rich keywords relevant to the job. ये आपको कहाँ से मिलेगा? Job description से मिल जाएगा, right? So take it from the job description and you need to add that in your resume as well. Okay, so keywords should be there. And save it in a readable format, in the sense don't save it in different format like an image format. Screenshot mat upload karo, right? Ensure that your resume is either in a PDF format or in a Word document format. Okay, so Word document, you will only upload a Word document only when the job description or the company has specifically or explicitly specified that upload it in a Word document. Only then you're going to upload it in a Word document. Otherwise, PDF is something that you're going to use throughout. Okay, so these are the things that you should be keeping in your mind when you're creating an ATS compatible resume. All right. So now let's take a look at some resumes that you should not be using. Okay. So this is the resume that I was talking about, wherein there's a division in between. Okay. Now, if you take a look at this resume, too much personal details have been mentioned, right? So work experience, pressure, about me, date of birth, gender, right? Declaration. There is nothing technical that has been mentioned in this resume or anything that makes this particular candidate get shortlisted for the job. That is not being mentioned here. Okay. So this is not a good resume. The other one that we are seeing here. Okay. If you take a look at the project section of this particular resume, the last section that you can see on the right hand side, here projects have not been explained, right? There is just one line explanation, or the title of the project is only something that has been mentioned. Nothing else have been added. So it's not something that you should be doing. You should be explaining your projects. Skill section have been mentioned it in a in a kind of cluttered kind of a manner. Okay. And note is something that they have put. Note is not the word that you're going to use. Career objective or summary. This kind of labeling you need to make use of. And both these resumes, the students have mentioned their complete address. No need to add your complete address ever. Date of birth, age is not required in your resume. Okay. So nothing personal, only professional details you're going to provide. Now next, let's take a look at the kind of resume that you should be using. So this is the kind of resume that I was talking about, a professional resume, a resume which is readable across all ATS systems. You can take a minute's time to glance through this. Okay, so this particular student has mentioned 4 details, only professional details have been mentioned: phone number, email ID, LinkedIn, GitHub. These are the 4 details have been mentioned. Next is education they have added, experiences they have added. So internship experiences have been added. Profession has been mentioned, and it has been mentioned in a very proper and crisp and accurate manner. A lot of numbers have been used to quantify their impact that they have brought about in the organization, in the designation, or the projects for that matter. You can check that as well. That is improving user satisfaction by 50%, reducing page load times by 40%. Okay, so such kind of numbers you can also use in your resume. Next is achievement they have talked about. And lastly, they have described technical skills. Okay, so here they have highlighted on all the technical skills that they are aware of. Okay, so now if you want to add your soft skills, you can add soft skills. You can create a section called a soft below this. Okay, technical skills ke idhar hi ya fir skills karke label karo, and then you can lastly add soft skills, and you can add the soft skills. Okay, again, it's not a mandatory section, it's optional. If you add it, it's well and good. Okay, so this is how your resume is going to look like. This is a professional resume template that you all can use. You will easily get it on the internet. Okay, all right. So this is all about resumes. Okay, now we are going to quickly jump on to interviews. Okay, before that, I hope all the doubts and questions about resumes have been clear. Okay, so if any one of you have any doubts or questions, put it out in the chat. Okay, we'll take the questions in the last bit of the session, the question and answer session, wherein we are going to take the questions whichever that are required. For now, let's go on to interview stages. Okay, so now here, like I said, we are going to go a step ahead of resume, right? Aapka resume shortlist ho gaya. Now, the next stage is you face the interview, right? So there are different stages of interview that might be conducted. Okay. First and foremost is the resume screening stage, which is obviously going to be there. Koi bhi organization mein aap apply karo, resume screening is the first part. Next is aptitude test. Okay. Aptitude test is a test that is conducted by organizations. Okay. So to understand the basic level of intelligence, the aptitude that you possess. Next is group discussion. There are certain organizations which conduct a group discussion or a GD round to filter out the candidates. Okay, a topic will be given and you will be asked to discuss on the topic for, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes. That is what a GD or a group discussion round is. Then there is a technical round. In the technical round, again, technical questions will be asked, assignments might be given, right? You might be asked to code something, etc., etc. That is what the technical round is. Again, even the ma'am will delve further onto that. Then there is HR round. Okay, HR round. So this is just to understand you as a person, right? Apart from the technical aspects, how do you perform as a person? So to understand this, HR round is also conducted. All right. Now you might have this question that what are the commonly asked HR questions, right? So technical questions, obviously, like, you understand that, okay, I'm going for Java developer's role. So I can expect these set of questions related to Java when I'm going to go in for this particular interview. Okay. But what about the HR questions? First and foremost, what are the HR questions that I can expect, right? So the first and foremost question that you can expect from the recruiter is, obviously, the moment you sit in front of the recruiter for the interview, the first question that the recruiter is going to throw at you or ask you is, can you please introduce yourself, or can you please tell me about yourself? Okay. So here, there are certain things that you should be keeping in mind when you're going to answer this question, right? At times, students get too personal when they are sharing this particular information about themselves, stating about themselves, right? They go into too much personal information. That is, they talk about their family members in very much depth, right? They talk about the place that they're residing in too much depth, right? They talk about their strengths and weaknesses for some reason in the introduction itself. Okay, and such kind of information is what they share in the introduction, and they don't talk about them from a professional perspective, etc. Okay, so to give an impactful kind of an introduction, what should you be having in the intro part, right? What should I be keeping aside? Okay, so things like your family details or things like strengths and weaknesses, don't reveal that in the introduction itself. Keep it for later when the recruiter is going to ask you the question. Okay, so when you're introducing, start off with your name, obviously. So hi, greet the recruiter and then start off with your name, that this is your name. As you know, my name is XYZ. Okay. And then you can talk about your educational background. If you're a recent graduate, आप education के बारे में बोलो. Now here, one thing that I would like to state is, if you want to make your introduction stand out a little bit and not be very common, right? So आप आपकी reason बता सकते हो why you switched. Because when you're going to state that I belong to this particular background, which is a non-technical background, educational background, it's obvious आपको ये question आएगा from the recruiter's end that why did you switch? What made you switch into the field of technology? Why do you want to work as a full stack developer, etc. Right? So if you can briefly talk about it in the introduction itself, so you might be wondering as to why I switched from XYZ profile from the field of commerce to the field of technology, right? So the reason is that you have been passionate, or you since your early childhood you really wanted to work as a developer, or let's say as a data analyst, because this is a field that has intrigued me, etc. Whatever your reason might be, जब भी आप reason बताओगे, ensure that you are not stating a selfish reason. Selfish reason in the sense, reasons that are like I switched क्योंकि IT में there's a lot of growth, or I switched because there's a lot of money in this field. Such kind of answers should not be stated. Or my father told me to take up this stream because he wanted to see me work as a developer, right? So this is like, you don't have a personal motivation. It's something that is influenced from outside, or your family members influenced you, or something externally influenced you, motivated to come into this field, which is not a convincing answer, right? So a convincing answer would be you stating your own keenness, your own desire, your own liking for this field, right? आपको data scientist क्यों बनना है? आपको full stack developer क्यों बनना है? What makes you intrigued about the field of full stack development? That is what you can identify, and that is what you're going to state when this question is going to be thrown at you. Okay, so you can talk about that. Then you can briefly talk about the skill sets that you have, the projects that you've worked on. Now, don't go into too much detail because it's already mentioned in your resume, right? So you need not talk about each and every project, which is already the recruiter can see those, right? So you can talk about the range of projects that you've worked on. So you've worked on e-commerce web pages, you've worked on backend projects. Just a brief about that. That is something that you can describe. And then, you can end it off with hobbies. You can also end it off by stating why you've applied for this role, or what did you find interesting about this role. ऐसे आप end कर सकते हो, which will make you a proper structured introduction. Okay, so why I'm focusing on this is because this will make your introduction stand out a little bit from the other candidates, right? So don't go, two things that you need to keep in mind is, don't go into too much personal details about yourself, and don't share too much information that is not at all required for the recruiter to know. Okay, strengths, weakness. Why would you talk about something negative about you in the introduction itself? Introduction is you are forming a first impression, right? So यहाँ पर आपको ध्यान रखना है that you are forming a positive impression. You would not start off that I am clumsy. This is not what you're going to say in the first part of the interview, right? So that is the reason this is something that you need to skip in the introduction. Next is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Okay, so
I want to tell you one question, ma'am.
yes, who is that? Yes, sir.
Chitanjan.
Go ahead.
Okay, the recruiter, how will we contact with freshers and experience in LinkedIn profile?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
The recruiter, how will we contact with freshers and experience of LinkedIn profile?
How will the recruiter get to know your experience through, is that your question, when you're applying for jobs?
हाँ, लिंक्डइन से कैसे फ्रेशर और एक्सपीरियंस को कांटेक्ट करेगा जो रिक्रूटर, डायरेक्ट कॉल आएगा उसको?
अच्छा अच्छा, ओके. सो लिंक्डइन का जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, आपका पहला स्क्रीनिंग होता है, राइट? फर्स्ट द स्क्रीनिंग इज डन, रेज्यूमे आपका शॉर्टलिस्ट हुआ, द रिक्रूटर विल गिव यू अ टेक्निकल और अ टेलीफोनिक कॉल. Okay, and they will ask you whether you are okay for this role, what is your educational background, brief about you. They will understand if this is a city, let's say you reside in this particular part of the city, the company is here, so are you okay to travel till here, right? So is that okay for you, etc. Such kind of basic questions they will ask, and then they will align an interview, or else they will directly mail you on your email ID that you have provided in the आपके resume में जो आपने email ID provide किया है, वहां पर वो आपको mail करते हैं stating that आपका profile shortlist हुआ है. The next part is the interview that is going to be conducted on XYZ date. This is how it happens. Okay, so either through phone or either through mail, the interview is going to be arranged. I hope I answered your question, Chittaranjan.
But डायरेक्ट कॉल नहीं आएगा, जैसे नक्की से कॉल आ रहा है मुझे, चित्रंजन आपको 3 years एक्सपीरियंस है, तो आपको जो पाइथन बैकएंड डेवलपर की जैंगो डेवलपर काम करना है, तो
हम्म।
ऐसे लिंक्डइन से डायरेक्ट रिक्रूटर कैसे कांटेक्ट करेगा? एक्सपीरियंस कोई एक फ्रेशर तो कांटेक्ट नहीं करेगा, तो एक्सपीरियंस को कैसे कांटेक्ट करेगा ऐसे?
आप रेज्यूमे अपलोड करते हो, राइट? लिंक्डइन
राइट,
पे भी जॉब्स के लिए आपको रेज्यूमे ही अपलोड करना पड़ता है, करेक्ट? कुछ क्वेश्चंस भी वो पूछते हैं, आपके पास कितना इयर्स का एक्सपीरियंस है, पाइथन में कितना प्रोफिशिएंसी है आपको, ऐसे कुछ क्वेश्चंस पूछते हैं जो आपको आंसर करना पड़ता है। कुछ कुछ प्रोफाइल्स में आपको कॉन्टैक्ट डिटेल्स भी शेयर करने पड़ते हैं, राइट? सो कैन यू स्टेट योर कॉन्टैक्ट डिटेल्स। ये ज्यादातर नौकरी पे होता है, लिंक्डइन पे जनरली इजी अप्लाई का ऑप्शन होता है, राइट? थ्रू यूजिंग इजी अप्लाई यू कैन अप्लाई फॉर द जॉब। जो रेज्यूमे आपने लिंक्डइन पे ऑलरेडी अपलोड किया है वो रेज्यूमे अपलोड हो जाता है। तो वहां पर द रिक्रूटर कैन चेक आउट योर ईमेल आईडी एंड फोन नंबर एंड दे विल कॉल यू, और लाइक आई सेड दे विल ड्रॉप यू मेल. That is how it happens. Or even on LinkedIn you might get the notification that your profile has gotten shortlisted. Okay, so the same step that is followed on Naukri or Indeed, the same thing LinkedIn as well follows.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So coming to the strengths and weaknesses, okay. So here, when you're stating your weakness or your strengths for that matter, ensure that you are talking about a relevant strength. Relevant strength in the sense you're applying for the role of a developer, right? And in this profile that you're applying for, if you state that your biggest strength is that you can cook multiple cuisines, or that you like reading a lot, right? Such kind of strengths, if you state, that is not an impactful strength that you're talking about, right? So why this question is asked is to understand your self-awareness, right? What exactly are you good at, and how I as an organization can benefit from your strength. That is what the recruiter is looking at, right? So if you say that I have extreme good cooking skills or etc., is it going to be helpful to the organization? Not at all, right? What is the strength of yours going to do for them? Okay, so यहाँ पर आपको क्या आंसर देना है? You're going to talk about a relevant strength related to the profile, right? So if you're applying for the role of a data scientist, data analyst, you need to have good problem solving skills, or any technical profile for that matter. Problem solving skills is something that you require, right? Creativity is something that you require. Having a good eye for detail, right? Keenness for things is something that you require, right? Having good spontaneous thinking, or having good time management skills, right? Or having an adaptable kind of a nature, right? Being a fast learner, right? So these are different sets of skills that are required for you in this particular role. Okay, so ऐसे कुछ strength आप state करो which is going to be impactful for you in this profile that you're going to go with. वो आपको बताना है, ठीक है? Now when it comes to a weakness, again, if you say a weakness that is going to harm you in the role, if your role is something that requires communication with people, and you say that you have terrible interpersonal skills, I can't talk with people, are you going to get shortlisted? No, it's a clear case of rejection here, right? So what you're going to state as your weakness is something that is not critical, right? Something that is not going to cause any problems to you, right, in the future, okay, or when you're going to be working for this role, right? So any non-critical weakness, like a skill-based weakness. Why skill-based weakness? Because this is something that you can learn on, right? Skills easily seek sakte ho aap, correct? So if I'm bad at Microsoft PowerPoint, if I work on it fully, and if I dedicate 1 week's time, by next week I can learn PowerPoint easily, right? So this is a skill-based weakness which I'm currently working on. Or something that is non-critical, something like I have a problem delegating tasks to people, right? Delegating tasks in the sense I find it difficult to allocate tasks when I am given a lead, or when I'm given a position of responsibility. I find it a little bit difficult to delegate tasks among people. Or let's say a weakness like public speaking that is addressing to a huge crowd of people. This is a current weakness that you have. You find it a little bit scared to interact with people in the first place. But again, don't state it, exaggerate it mat karo that I stand and I faint. Such kind of weaknesses shouldn't be shared. Okay, so this is what the weakness and strengths part is. Next question that can be asked to you from an HR perspective is, why do you want to work for this particular company or role, right? यहाँ पर आपको क्या बोलना है? Your keenness in this particular company, right? So what intrigued you about this company? So इसके लिए आपको company के बारे में थोड़ा सा research करना important है when you're going to apply for the job. A little bit research, that is going through the website of the organization. उनके बारे में थोड़ा सा आप जानकारी ले सकते हो, so that you can give an impactful answer here. Okay, so the reason why I want to work for your organization is because your organization is something that believes in constant innovation, right? I would want to be a part of an organization which believes in this, because along with the organization, I can also grow in terms of my skills as well as my expertise, etc. Okay, so this is something that you can state here. Okay, so ये आपको कैसे पता चला? आपको वेबसाइट में दिखा that they believe in constant innovation the most. उनके विजन या फिर मिशन जो पेज है वहां पर लिखा था. So you understood, okay, this is what this company believes mostly in. So I'm going to state that as my answer. So relation, right? So show that you are going to be, you are interested in this organization because of this. इसमें आप ये answer नहीं दोगे that you offer a very fat paycheck or a very good package. That is not an answer that you should be giving you. For the same goes for role. What intrigued you about this particular role, right? Why do you want to work as a Power BI developer? Because I have skill sets, or I have a good knowledge in Power BI on a personal level. I've also worked on these projects based on Power BI at a personal level. Now I want to expand further. I want to learn more from a professional point of view. I would want to be part of projects which are like, client based, and from this, using this particular technology, I want to evolve further in this particular role, or using this particular tool. So I want to work for this role, etc. ऐसे आपको एक personal or like an impactful answer is what you're supposed to give. Next is, what do you know about our organization? We have already discussed this. So whatever awareness that you have about the organization, that is what you're supposed to state. Okay, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Again, this is a question that you can expect. So here you are supposed to show your long-term vision. इसमें आपको distraction नहीं बताना है, in the sense currently you're working in this profile, so a few years down the line I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to work in the field of data science. आप अभी full stack में जा रहे हो, now you want to go into a different domain altogether. This shows lack of clarity, or you are not really focused on this particular role. This is something that you're using as a stepping stone. Okay, so this is not an answer to give. Show that you would like to progress in the profile that you have chosen currently. जो profile अभी आपने choose किया है, उसमें आपको progress करना है, उसमें आपको excel करना है. You want see yourself working maybe as a senior role in this particular designation in this organization. That is the kind of answer that you should be giving here. Okay, next is salary expectations. Again, don't state a salary from your end, or don't be too rigid on the salary part, especially for freshers or those who are coming from different domains. Don't be too rigid on the salary, because any person who negotiates a lot on the salary part, it is an instant red flag for the company. Okay, so don't do that. Be flexible enough to state that you're okay for negotiation, etc. Because right now you're focused on getting an entry, or you are focused on getting a role into your organization. So that is your concern. That is what you're supposed to see. थोड़ा सा flexibility आपको दिखाना है. And the answer that you can generally give is whatever that you're offering for a person with my level of expertise and experience, I'm okay with that. As long as it is something that is justified, I'm okay with that. ऐसे आप answer दे सकते हो. Okay, what are your hobbies? Obviously, this question will be asked. Do you have any questions for us? Okay, so this is how recruiters generally end off interviews. So यहाँ पर don't end it off by saying that, no, I don't have any questions. I don't have a question at all. No. Ask at least 1 or 2 questions. 2 questions maximum, not more than that.
Can you explain where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? I don't understand. Where do you see? Yeah.
All right. So why this question is asked is to understand, like I said, आपका long term plan क्या है. Okay. So यहाँ पर आपको ये नहीं बताना है कि आपको कोई और प्रोफाइल में जाना है. आपको बेसिकली ये बताना है कि यू आर कमिटेड टू दिस रोल. जो रोल अभी आपने चूज किया है, या फिर जिस पोजीशन के लिए आप इंटरव्यू कर रहे हैं, जिस डोमेन आपने अभी चूज किया है, यू आर कमिटेड टू दैट इन द कमिंग नेक्स्ट फ्यू इयर्स. बिकॉज दे वांट टू सी whether you are someone who is going to switch into a different organization, whether you are someone who is going to leave this profile altogether. That is the reason they ask you this question. Okay, so they want to see commitment from your end, and that is exactly the answer that you're going to give. Okay, so आपको आंसर में stability, lack of stability नहीं बताना है. आपको ये बताना है that you see yourself progressing in the domain of data science and analytics, or let's say you see yourself progressing in the domain of full stack development, and you envision yourself in this role XYZ. Like, a few years down the line, I probably see myself working as a senior role in the domain of full stack development, something like that. Okay, ये आपको बताना है. Long term vision and long term commitment आपको बताना है to the profile and the organization that you have chosen. Is that clear? Yes, Chittaranjan, is that clear for you?
Yes, clear.
Okay. All right. So lastly, do you have any questions for us? So like I said, ask at least 1 or 2 questions related to your role, right? So कुछ skill के basis पे JD आपने पढ़ा, उसमें कुछ questions है आपको, तो you can ask that, okay? और company के बारे में कुछ questions है, कुछ what is the training duration going to be like, right? Is there any tool that I will have to learn, or is there going to be a training provided for that, right? Or how would you describe the work culture of this particular organization, right? Such kind of, or how will my performance be evaluated if I get shortlisted? How would my performance be evaluated? ऐसे कुछ questions आप पूछ सकते हो. Again, don't ask too many questions. At least one question need be asked, because this indicates that you're actually interested in the role. इसलिए आपको question पूछना है, right? A person who is window shopping casually for interviews would not ask such questions. So that is the reason this is something that you would be asking to the recruiter. All right, fine. So next, moving on to the other set of questions that you can expect. So we are not going to discuss this exclusively. This is something that you can keep in mind so that you understand such kind of questions is also something that you can expect. So अगर आपको experience है पुराना, तो आपको experience पे questions पूछा जा सकता है. आपको situation based questions पूछा जा सकता है, difficult situation or a task that you had to manage simultaneously. So how did you react? Or when you're faced with multiple choices, आप कैसे decide करते हो, right? Or certain situation based scenarios like you have A task and B task. आप ये दोनों टास्क में से कौन सा प्रायोरिटाइज करोगे? ओके, सो ऑलवेज एंड ऑलवेज व्हेन यू आर आंसरिंग सच क्वेश्चंस, ट्राई टू थिंक ऑफ इट फ्रॉम एन इंटरव्यूअर्स पॉइंट ऑफ view. Okay, interviewers point of view, in the sense, why would this recruiter be asking me this question? They're not asking me because they want to spend time, or they are asking me random questions. No, right? They're asking me this question because there's a purpose behind it. So such kind of situation is something that I can expect in the future when I'm going to work with this organization. इसलिए आपको ऐसे situation based questions पूछे जाते हैं. So always and always be mindful of it and give an answer which you feel like is going to make you happy, as well as, most importantly, the recruiter is going to be happy with the answer. Okay, so such kind of answers. So logically think of it. Take a moment's time. If you feel like it's a bit of it's kind of a confusing kind of a question, take a moment's time and then give out a strategic kind of a response. Okay, logically thought out answer is something that you are supposed to give. Okay, so these are the questions, situation based questions that you can expect. Okay. Next, let's look at the attire. Okay, so we are also going to focus on the etiquettes part, right? The attire, the grooming that you should be doing for an interview. So this is a female attire or grooming that we are discussing about. So a formal attire is what you're supposed to wear, a Western formal attire or an Indian formal attire. So when you're talking about a Western formal attire, so a skirt is something that you can wear, a formal skirt below knee length, or a formal pant is something that you can opt for. Okay. A formal shoes and a shirt. A formal shirt is something that you're supposed to wear. Keep accessories to the minimum. Your hair, preferably if it is tied, that would be preferable. Okay, makeup and accessories should be minimal. That is something that you should be taking care of. If you're wearing Indian attire, right, that is what you're opting for. A kurti and no jeans. None of you are going to wear jeans ever in interviews. Okay, be it male or female. So proper Indian attire is what you're supposed to wear, with formal shoes and again, makeup minimal, accessories should be cut minimal. Okay, so this is the attire from a female point of view. If I talk about male attire and grooming, this is what you should be wearing. Okay, no casuals, no jeans, no sneakers, no shoes, no chappals, nothing of that sort. Okay, a formal shirt, properly ironed, full sleeve shirt you are supposed to wear, no half sleeve shirts or anything. Okay, and a pant, a formal pant, a properly ironed, dark color, preferably formal pant is what you're supposed to wear, with shoes, formal shoes. Okay, if I talk about your grooming, if you have a very heavy beard, then maybe go for a trim. It should look presentable. That is what we are discussing here. If you haven't gone for a haircut in the longest of long time, then go for a haircut, right? Because you want to seem approachable, you want to seem presentable in front of the recruiter. Okay, so always have that crisp kind of an attitude, as well as the attire is something that you should be taking care of. Perfume, use it, but not too much. It should not seem like you are a walking, talking air freshener. Okay, so these are small things that should be taken care from an interview perspective. Okay, so this is what we are discussing from resume to interview. Okay, so if you have any questions, any doubts related to whatever that we have discussed so far, please write it out in the chat. Like I said, towards the end of the session, we can take it up from there. Okay, now the next part of the session, like I said, it's going to be focused on the technical aspects. Okay, so Itvedant ma'am is going to take it forward. She's going to discuss further from a technical resume as well as a technical interview point of view. Okay, all right.